Well, we'll start with a bit of a story. What did you get up to at the weekend? Well, here we thought about time for a new family car. I thought I've got a bit of cash to spend, I want something a bit flashy, so off we went straight down to the next town where there's a nice little Ferrari dealership, and there was smitten as soon as I went in. Nice and flashy and shiny. I thought that's what we want. 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. I thought that's the muck's nuts. We'll have one of those. So went over to have a look, and I was really a bit disgusted. I thought I got there, I thought no room for the kids. Can't get the kids in the back. There's not much room for the suitcases for going on holiday. And then, to top it off, a bloody sales rep came over and quite distinctly pointed out that on the back bumper there were nowhere to fit your towing eye to take your caravan or your trailer to the tip. I thought, this isn't no good. I said, well, I want one of these, I want one, but I want one, you know, one with a big bit on the back, you know, I can put all my suitcases in, and can't you squeeze a couple of, you know, squeeze some little seats in the back for the children? And he was quite rude to me. He said, mate, he says, you're in the wrong showroom. He says, you need to pull yourself together. He said, get realistic. He said, what you need, you just need a normal estate car or a people carrier. Or if you're going to take a load of stuff to the tip or do a lot of caravanning, maybe you want a 4x4 or a Land Rover. He said, I'll tell you what, he says, go out the door, go down there, and there's a nice Land Rover dealership, and just past that, there's a second-hand car garage. They've got some really nice motors on the front of there. Just what you want. Plenty of room in the back, towing eyes on there. Super. Smashing. Off you pop. So, there, I wasn't really best happy. In fact, I was quite grumpy about it. I thought, I know what I want. It's just him and they don't supply it. I know what I want. Huh. So there, I was quite indignant. So, I guess you're thinking, what the bloody hell is he rabbiting on about now? Well, what I'm saying is, and as I've said before on many occasions, a regulator isn't a be-all, end-all, solve-all. It is simply an opening and closing valve, but it can have a magical effect on a pre-charged air rifle in the fact that it can meter out the energy contained in the main air reservoir pocket more efficiently to give more shots, and it can stabilise the feet per second that you get at the muzzle. But it's not everything. You can't have one and the other. You can't have your cake and eat it. So one of the things you see regularly on airgun forums, if you go in and type in regulators, is people on there going on about the number of shots they've got. That's great if you want a great number of shots. But when you see somebody on there who's got a Walther, a Steyr, an Evo, or a Pro Target, the name of the game isn't the number of shots. The name of the game is accurate and consistent feet per second reading at the muzzle. So if you actually measure up the volume of air inside the rifles that I've just mentioned in comparison to the number of shots that the manufacturers say that they'll give, it's actually quite possible to shoehorn far more shots out of them than they do. But they're after accuracy in feet per second at the muzzle, not the greatest number of shots. So when you're fitting your regulator, you can fit it for either most consistent feet per second at the muzzle or greatest number of shots. And there's a very slight difference between the two. It's not much, and you know, but over if you were going to fire strings and strings and strings, you would notice that set slightly differently, there is going to be more accuracy in feet per second set one way than there is set the other. So if you're going to be using your gun for FT work, you need to think realistically. You know, how many shots do I need? How long are the courses that I shoot? You know, am I going to fire 20 0-inch shots, 40 shot course, 20 shots in a pull shoot afterwards, 80 shots. So there you go. You just want 80 very good shots. You could probably shoehorn nearly 200 out of some guns, but the foot per second at the muzzle isn't going to be as accurate. It's not going to be wildly out, but it's not going to be as good as if you're setting up only to get a good consistent number for what you want. Now, I know there's people I speak to who don't live near divers centres, so it can be trouble for them to get the bottle filled up. The people who live in the middle of nowhere and they use a hand pump to pump up the, stirrup pump to pump up their PCP. And so these people want the greatest number of shots possible. If they're just hunting and they don't do shooting competitions and they just want to get as much energy out of this reservoir as possible, they're going for the greatest number of shots. So there is a difference. So before you decide to regulate your gun, you need to be realistic, possibly with a bit of optimism, but be realistic. If you've been and spoke to people who've got different guns with regulators in, there's only a finite amount of energy within this chamber. The regulator doesn't add extra energy or convert it, it just meters it out carefully through the outlet valve mechanism. And so, if everyone's getting 100 shots out of their particular gun with a regulator in it, you're not suddenly going to start getting 200 out of it. So, you need to set yourself a goal, a threshold to how many shots you are going to be happy to get and what feet per second accuracy you're trying to get. Because if you don't set yourself a goal and you don't know exactly what you want, you're going to really end up with disappointment and grumpiness when it's not necessary. So you need to consider. So if you're going for the greatest number of shots, then the regulator will end up at a lower pressure and the transfer port will end up enlarged. If you're going for more consistency in feet per second and a smaller number of shots, then the regulator will be better at a higher pressure and the transfer port will probably end up around still maintain the same size. So there is a little bit of a difference, not much, but with the extra tuning that you can do at this end, then you can accomplish either a large number of shots or greater consistency. Most people go for the average. The average is the regulator's set between, say, 85 and 115 bar. It's normally the 100 bar mark, isn't it? But that's the sort of area. 85 bar output to 115 bar output is the average, and that gives you, a bit of best of both. If you're going for the greatest number of shots, you might get the regulator down at the absolute lowest ever, which I've heard of, is about 52 bar. Where if you're going to be just going for FT shooting, and that there's 200 shots worth of air in this reservoir, if you set the gun at 52 bar, there's 200 shots worth, and then you've calculated that you can get your 80 if the regulator's set up at 120, 125 bar, then for better shot-to-shot consistency at the muzzle, you want to set the regulator up at 115, 125 bar. So please, before you set about setting the regulator up and everything else, you do need to consider what is your goal. I.e., I'm going to be very happy with 80 shots and I'm going to try and achieve 10 feet per second difference on the whole 80 shot string. Or you might think, well, I need to get as many as possible, I'm going to lower it down gradually, open the transfer port up, adjust the springs, and I know that at the most I've calculated I can get 145 shots. So you need to set yourself a goal and then look at how you're going to accomplish that goal.